Making virtual machines highly available in Hyper-V 2016. Okay, in my previous video, I have created a cluster, Hyper-V cluster called Hypercluster 1. And if you remember, we had three nodes, and still we have those three nodes. These three nodes, Hyper 1, Hyper 2, and Hyper 3. All three are running Hyper-V 2016. And if you notice under the roles, you will be able to see that I have two VMs here, Server 1 and Server 2. Both are running, and Server 1 is running on Hyper 1 and Server 2 is running on Hyper 2. These VMs, they did not appear by themselves. I configured them as highly available. These VMs were there prior to configuring failover clustering. So the question is how do we do that? How do we configure existing VMs as highly available? Well, there are two things. Number one, you need to make sure that VM virtual machine files, when I say files, I mean configuration files as well as virtual disk files. So VM files should be on shared storage. And once the VM files are on shared storage, then all you can do, you can use the configure role options and configure virtual machine for high availability. You can do it in reverse order as well. You can go for configure role and configure VM for high availability. So what it will do, it will do the necessary configuration to make sure that VM is highly available. It will analyze VM configuration. If there are any errors, it will tell you, and it will make the VM ready to be highly available. Then all you have to do after that is to move virtual machine files from local volume to shared volume, like iSCSI LUN or Fiber Channel LUN. In short, virtual machine files, which includes configuration files as well as VHDX or VHD files or virtual machine disk files. All these type of files needs to be on clustered shared volume so that all cluster nodes can access those files when needed, so that we can use those advanced features like automatic load distribution as well as live migration and high availability. So as I say, server 1 and server 2, these VMs were there already. I have already done done the configuration for it. For demonstration purpose, I have another VM on server 3, sorry, on Hyper 3, which is called server 3. This server 3 currently residing on the local volume of Hyper 3. As you can see here, VHDX file for server 3 is on the E drive, which is a local volume on Hyper 3. So it means if I shut down Hyper 3, there is no way Hyper 1 and Hyper 2 can get access to server 3 files and start server 3 VM, because E drive is a local drive, and if Hyper 3 goes down, drive goes down with it. Correct? So what we need to do to make it highly available, as I said, I need to move virtual machine files to shared volume as well as configure the role in failover clustering to make it highly available. I can do it in reverse order as well. So let me do it. Let me show you how. I'm in the failover cluster manager. So I'll go to roles, right click, configure roles, and this high availability wizard will appear. As you can see, this wizard configures high availability for a role. So go next, and I will select the role that I want to configure for high availability. In my case, it's virtual machine. When I will select virtual machine, it will automatically analyze, and it automatically detected that the server 3 is the VM which is not configured for high availability. Because I have just three VMs, server 1, server 2, and server 3, Server 1 and Server 2 are already configured for high availability. Server 3 is the only one that's not. So I will select Server 3 and you're ready to configure. And now the wizard is configuring this virtual machine Server 3 for high availability. It's done. However, it gives a warning here to us, says the path VMS is not a path to storage. We totally know that because this is not a shared storage path. It's a local storage path. So what I have to do once this wizard finished configuring configuration files for high availability, I need to move virtual machine files to storage, to a cluster shared volume or a shared storage or shared iSCSI LAN. And how to do that? All I had to do, right click the VM and select move virtual machine storage. And here I have an option that I can select individual file, whether it's a VHDX file or checkpoint file or snapshots or smart paging or configuration file. I can drag and drop individual file to cluster shared volumes. As you can see below, I have two cluster shared storage, volume 1 and volume 2. So I can drag and drop them individually, right? Or I can take all of them as a whole and drop to the required volume. For example, I am moving virtual machine as server 3 files, which includes virtual hard disk as well as configuration files to cluster shared volume 1. So I just drop it here and say stop. And now it's starting the virtual machine storage migration, which is basically what is it performing? What is it doing is moving virtual machine files, again VHDX file as well as configuration files, from the E drive of Hyper 3 to the cluster shared volume of cluster volume 1, as you can see here. And we will be able to see in a while. If I open E drive VMs, you will see that this, once move will finish, this file will disappear from here because it will be moved from local storage, which is E, to cluster shared volume, which is right here under C cluster storage, volume 1 or volume 2. Those of you who are new to failover clustering, it's not something new. It's already been there, uh, I think from server 2012 time, that whenever you configure a shared cluster of failover clustering, you're clustering shared volumes like iSCSI volumes or fiber channel volume, depends what type of storage you have or shared volumes you have. They will appear on your C cluster storage and they will appear over here. Like I have two volumes, one is 100 gig and one is 150 gigs. They are appearing here. And as you can see, these are basically a shortcut that will take you to the real storage. So if I want to move the data file, I will always use these shortcut as a reference, like moving from C cluster storage volume 1 to E drive, or right now I'm doing reverse, which is moving from E drive, which is the local volume, to C cluster storage volume 1, which is basically a shared volume, pointing to, which is basically a it's shared volumes. As you can see, it's just a pointer. You see, it's like a shortcut. It's going to LUN1. So it's basically a shortcut pointing to LUN1, and this is going to LUN2. So, oh, it looks like it's the movement it's finished. So if I go to EVMS VHD, yeah, it's not there. So where is it? So if I go to sorry, C, cluster storage, volume 1, yeah, it's right there. And here, this is the file that's been moved recently, yeah. This one and this one. Relative configuration files are there. VHDX file is there. So now this machine is on shared storage, as you can see. So this is you do if you have already existing VMs. Like I have these VMs prior to configuring failover clustering. So when I configure failover cluster, I need to make this VM highly available. So to do that, I have to go to this configure role options and then make sure to move virtual machine files from local volumes to shared volume. What if you have a brand new VM? Let's say I want to create a new VM called server 4, which doesn't exist right now. Well, for that, all you have to do, you see the virtual machine options right here. So virtual machine, you can say new virtual machine. Select the node there where you would like this virtual machine to run from. For example, Hyper 1. And OK. And then this wizard will appear. And all we have to do, just follow this wizard. Next. VM name, server 4. Store where I would like to store this VM. By default, it's taking the Hyper-V hypervisor default, but I can browse to cluster shared volume, the cluster storage, let's say volume 1, and let's say the Gen 2, 1 gig is fine, just a testing, and yeah, configuration, virtual machine, VMDK, see, cluster storage volume 1, I would say just 30 gig, and I would like to install an OS, and I think I have on the local volume I have an ISO, so I mount that, install an OS, just to install an OS. Otherwise, this ISO is on local volume, so of course it may create a problem when we want to do a live migration. So it will, or want to make virtual machine highly available, it will give me a warning. So if I say finish, after configuring this, oh, so let me choose volume 4 because I think I have already one. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that because uh, I already had a virtual disk called Server 4 there. Uh, while I was doing some testing, I created Server 4, so that's why it gave me an error. So I choose Volume 2. So as you can see, after the VM is being created, this high availability wizard appear and it says, it give me a warning about the ISO path, which we know that already, but we need to mount ISO anyway. In my case, it's on the local volume, so it's fine. So I say next. So all I had to do, start, and it's starting. So I say connect. It's connecting. And once this VM is started, because it's a lab environment, just bear with me, it's a little slow. Okay, here. So if I say Control or Delete, press any key for boot from CD, I enter, and here it is loading files. So that's how you create a brand new machine in Hyper-V cluster and make it highly available from the very beginning by placing its files, configuration files, as well as VHDX file location on shared clustered shared volume. So like as you can see, if I go to the settings, that what we did basically, that if I see the hard drive, it's stored on cluster shared volume, volume 2, and smart paging file is also, or smart paging file is on volume 1. So it's a bit of a mixture for me, but and the reason is because I had already, server for VHDX in older location. But you won't face this. One option was just delete it and delete the old one and do it, but doesn't matter. It's just a demo. As you can see, the VM, it's all you have to do, just proceed and install like regular installation. So that's how you create, that's how you make your existing virtual machine highly available in Hyper-V, as well as create newly or new virtual machines as highly available from the very beginning in Hyper-V Server 2016. So once again, to summarize, in this video, I have demonstrated that how to make existing VMs highly available in Hyper-V 2016 after configuring failover clustering, and how to create a new virtual machine as highly available in Hyper-V Server 2016 failover cluster. So this is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and take it easy.